Hi. Today is the 4th of July. Happy Independence Day in the year of 2022. So, make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel, like my official YouTube videos, share the link to my official YouTube videos, go to my website, www.susanbling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. So, I find independence depending upon how you view independence. So I can be a smidgen stubborn. Every now and then, I can be a smidgen stubborn, just a little bit, a tiny bit, kind of like when you call tiny from security at a bar, tiny. I can be a tiny bit stubborn at times. I can every now and then. And so in this reference, I was officially emancipated in the year of 1996 when I had been invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I was secondarily emancipated again in regards of when I went to the Army in the year 2000, And so in reference to my updates in regards of my journal blog, the Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanbling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. There are certain people who understand this, When it comes to family biologically, there's the knowledge. There's certain things, you work through as best as you can, you acknowledge certain things, but it's between, whatever. And so only if certain things have to be in a larger capacity. So when it comes to my biological father, that is as it is, When it comes to my biological mother and biological little sister, that is as it is. Everybody has an ex. So I got ex-in-laws. And everybody got ex. And so my ex-in-laws, especially, so this is a pre-warning, although, I don't think I really got to give this warning. My language might be a bit New Jerseyan. It might be a smidgen mixture of the 5 boroughs, with a sprinkling as to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And the cherry on top as to, just myself. So I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And so my ex-in-laws, I got along with a few of them. I got along with my ex-brother-in-law and his wife, mainly those two in Oklahoma. I got along with Grandpa Nichols. I, to a degree, got along with my ex-mother-in-law, and to a degree got along with my ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez at the time. Who I did not get along with at all was this twat, trifling hoe bitch named Mary Evangelina, maiden last name Nichols, legal last name Osteen. This trifling hoe bitch actually tried to tell me, now mind you, I was not born and raised in Georgia. And so only Georgians, although others who have that family sort of lineage, you guys would know how this goes. So I'm going to do the voice in reference to Myra! Now, before I go into this, remember, in reference to people who I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, that shit's what it is, So if this, she told me about Dallas as a thing regarding, and it was one of those, I lived in, I had purchased my house in Carrollton, Texas, which is in DFW. Her and her trifling twat hoe children were really on about Dallas or something like that, and it's like, Okay, so Dallas, Texas is Dallas, Texas. And same thing with Susie. The two of them were something about, you know, whatever. It's like, it's DFW as far as I'm concerned. Then again, I don't know any, like, reference points, though other people might. So remember, my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, she had thought all dogs loved her. And then there was this dog, Julio, that bit her in the face and made her face all bloody. So she was a Bloody Mary, like the drink, as far as that's concerned, where you think about how ew the drink must be if you have to use celery. Like, I don't know if you actually eat the celery or not, but think about that. You know, like, think about that. Think about that sort of, like, you need celery to tolerate whatever it is regarding a Bloody Mary. I don't actually know what that is, because I don't drink alcohol. But there are those who understand that Bloody Mary sort of thing, okay? Then you got David, because that's how she talked. David, 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 damn a David, David. So I went to Georgia one time, and I spent like a whole week there, and it's like, ugh. Wow. So he went to the Air Force at Warner Robins Air Force Base. And mind you, I've already gone over the aspects as to my original Blue ID card, which we're not family. I don't know why she would ever think we're family. Like, I guess maybe it's that pop culture, like MK Ultra terminology, where I wasn't, like, she knew that I had only been awake from my coma not even a full year when I met her. And so her daughter, her eldest daughter, trifling whatever, named Sandra, which is, her first name is named after the demonically possessed aunt that Mary and Susie and Tony had, where great-grandma Nichols in Alabama was like, them diamonds went away as soon as Sandra died. As soon as Sandra died. That's the way she put it in 2000, I think it was 2005 when she told me. No, it might have been 2002. It was 2002 when she told me about that, because I went out to Chandler Mountain. So I refused to get out of my car. So, okay, let me back that up, okay? So, went out to Georgia and Alabama, and my son was a year old, and my daughter was like a few, or maybe I was pregnant with my daughter. I don't remember fully, because it was, you know, when I still had not been awake from my coma for longer than even 5 years. I was working on a lot of stuff at that point in time. I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. I was dealing with headaches and migraines and so on and so forth. So went out with, I think it was Brianna Marie, Susie's eldest daughter, and then I think Marissa and Joseph actually might have went too. So I think all three of her children went, but it is what it is. Went out to Alabama to see great-grandma Nichols, and then, you know, my now dead ex-husband was like, hey, I want to show you someplace, because essentially I had discussed Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. And so he drives out to this place called Chandler Mountain in Alabama. There's a rundown shed size of a building. And he got out of the car and he's like, hey, you gonna, no. No, I think I was pregnant with my daughter. No, I'm not getting out of the car. Fast forward to the year of 2017 when I was working on my Medal of Honor art project trip. Okay, my Medal of Honor art project. And I was in South Dakota. And I saw I don't know what's come out of I don't know where, literally. So like, pretend this area right here and this way is a field. But right here is where these I don't knows come out of. And I haven't ever seen these I don't knows, and I don't know how to explain them. And they run across the street. A herd of them. They start here. There's a huge field. These I don't knows run this way. I get to the Mason cemetery across the street from the Texaco. And out of nowhere, literally starting here, here's the rest of the cemetery, and then there's the street on the other side. And these Adanos start by the hundreds running, and I don't know what they are. Mind you, I'm in a Mazda hatchback at that point in time, and I'm having an issue getting this vehicle up what seems is to be a 45-degree angle upward incline. And I'm thinking to myself, before these Adanos come out of nowhere, I should have a dually truck. Like, I should have a 450, the very minimum, to go up this. I don't know. And then these Adanos come out of nowhere. Well, mind you, over here is a cliff. So it is just enough roadway that the hatchback Mazda 6 could fit. And it only had like about 12 inches on the other side of the wheels. And I'm like, that's a steep drop. That's a really steep drop downward. These Adanos come out of nowhere, and I'm, you know what? I don't need to find this guy. I'm just gonna reverse. Then we can just go slowly back downwards and just go after all of these Adanos. Just whatever. This also happened prior to the year of 2017. Now, mind you, 2017 is the solar eclipse. This was maybe a week or week and a half before the solar eclipse in 2017. I don't know where these things, and I don't know where they went, and I don't know where they went, because it was a cliff. So I didn't see them go up, but I don't know where they went because they didn't go down. So I don't know, and I know that sounds weird, but I've seen things, and I've taken pictures. So you can look at my website, www.susanbling.com, which is the same as www.ladydoribell.com. If you go to my Instagram, there's some pictures and videos, though that's nothing compared to these Adanos. And so in 2015, I went out to Spokane to go work on my Medal of Honor art project. And I took pictures of this, I don't know what it was, that was in this little grove of trees. It was an animal that looked like a wolf, and yet a coyote, and yet a lion, and yet a bear at the same time. And it had a baby with it. And before so I stopped the car. It was my car at the time in comparison, because I had the rental car, which was the Mazda 6. And I stopped my vehicle, and before I could blink fully, I watched this, I don't know, go run around the rear of the car and get up on this hill. So I got my cell phone. I think it was the red Windows phone. And I'm not getting out of my car. I just took pictures of it because I didn't know what else to do, because who am I going to speak with about this? I already had the situations as far as Vancouver, Washington. And so in 2015, it's 2 years to the point in time of the solar eclipse in 2017. And so it's just, I'll just take these pictures and apparently Windows, so it was a Windows phone, so that's Windows company. And so, take the pictures, and I don't even know, I don't know. And then it ran in front of my vehicle at a speed I had never seen before. And it looked literally just like a flash of light, and then it was back to this grove of tree area. Well, that's creepy. Mind you, I'm working on my Medal of Honor art project, where I complete historical and spiritual rubbings as far as the total aspects. So I go out to where Grand Staff is. So this is the particular location where this happened. And peacocks show up. There were peacocks. The bird. They didn't get too close, but these little peacocks show. Well, I shouldn't say little, because they were bigger than normal peacocks. They were about this tall. And it was one of those, I haven't ever seen peacocks that size or that color. And so it's, I'm just doing my work. I'm not, I haven't ever seen anything like this stuff happen. So it's like, okay, so in the modern day book, in my book section through my website, www.susanmeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com, you can click on the link for the modern day book and get it through Amazon. And so I just, okay, I'll just do my work, and I believe I wrote about this as well. And so, okay, I've seen some stuff. I haven't ever seen this. Okay, so there's a point in time where I was in Yakima, in Washington State, and I thought I saw my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, with her two trifling whore daughters, in my opinion. And so, it's one of those, nah, they can't be that stupid. They wouldn't want what great-grandma Nichols to have happen to Sandra, would they? Is that what they want? Is that what they prefer? Because I can make that happen, but it won't technically, whatever, as far as that's concerned. And then, so this garbage, as far as my opinion. So Sandra is named after the demonically possessed aunt to my dead ex-husband and Mary's aunt, which is my ex-sister-in-law, Tony's aunt, which is my ex-brother-in-law, and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, the legal name now is Sweeney, aunt. I wouldn't get out of the car, and I think it was 2002, at Chandler Mountain. And I refused. It was similar to those particular factors. So when getting back to great-grandma Nichols' house at that time, where great-uncle Tony was there, and he had been in the Marines, they were just like, what's wrong? And I had told great-grandma Nichols about that, and she's like, you didn't bring none of them diamonds back, did you? And I was like, you want to explain? Like, a little bit? And so apparently, it was known in the Nichols family that they played spin the bottle in the Chandler. So a bunch of the cousins and aunts and whatever, they played spin the bottle in the Chandler Mountain house with one of those old Coke bottles. And it rolled across the uneven wooden floor, rolled up the wall about halfway, slowly rolled down, and then rolled back, and then my now dead ex-husband got to kiss my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. And the amount of similarities between their personality traits is kind of really weird. It is as it is, as far as certain things are concerned. And so, if in that capacity, well, there's the Justice of the Peace situation that I discussed, and you could read about in Finding a Silver Lining. Again, the link to my Amazon book in my book section of my website, www.susanmeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. Now, Mary had allowed Sandra Marie to name Ariel Nicole. So Ariel was named after the Little Mermaid movie, though she looks like the evil mermaid from the Little Mermaid because of her hairstyle and hair color and face and everything. And then her middle name is Nicole. My dead ex-husband, his nickname in the Army was Nick. And so, those who have been involved with certain types of activities, you might say, oh, every now and then. You might say, like, and so, and so Ariel Nicole. And so, she has a bit different of a look compared to Sandra, but whatever it is, it is. And so, when I went out to Georgia, and I was out there for, with my son and my daughter, and Susie's middle daughter at that time, Marissa Marie, we were at that house, and so Mary, anytime she yelled at David, which again, anybody who knows, David, I swear, David. And that would go on for about 5 minutes or so. So then there was Sandra and Mama, and that's, I don't know how to explain it other than that. And then there was Ariel, Mama, because it was just, I don't know what it was as far as how, anyway, just how it was. Well, Mary tried to tell me in the year 2001, shortly before my original Blue ID card, oh, Susan, you should know, like, I am a Georgia Page. And I asked where she was born. And she said she was born in Louisiana. How can you be a Georgia Peach if you weren't born in Georgia? Oh, you don't know. I was a Georgia Page. I was a Georgia Page. I think in order for you to be that, that requires you to actually be a generational type in comparison. And so it had been offensive because how dare I, and again, Georgians would be capable to explain, even Ariel isn't technically considered a Georgian because David and Mary are not Georgians. Even if one of the two were, she'd only be a half Georgian by the generational standards, if I remember correctly, because I know how some are in those references, especially in the South. And so, so then, there's the situations that I had dealt with in 2013. So I had contacted my ex-sister-in-law through my original Facebook account, and in the messaging system, because of what was going on in reference to Child Protective Services after the Fort Worth Zoo, because of McCoy Elementary School in Carrollton, Texas, as far as Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District. I was already dealing with stuff in 2008 and 2009, but she wouldn't know that. My other ex-sister-in-law would, because of knowing that. And so I was doing the best I could for my son, my daughter, and I, the scuba diving aspects as to the recreational, civilian, lazy scuba divers, and those particular catastrophes all clusterfucked together. Well, by the time of because I wouldn't speak with Mary at all. There was no need for me to speak with Mary. Not a friend of mine, not family to me, wasn't family to me to begin with. When it came to 2009, there were a bunch of situations as far as Sandra and Ariel, and I refused to tolerate a bunch of their immaturity as far as that was concerned. And so my Blue ID card, where I'm the one and only sponsor, there is no need or reason for them to have any involvement with my life at all, whatsoever. They had no legal authority in regards of my sponsor, because I'm the sponsor, as to my Blue ID card. And because I refused to speak with them about stuff that wasn't for them to know, they were offended because they tried when it came to 2001. Oh, well, David just graduated from Air Force Base training, so why don't you tell us about what? None of your business. That's none of your damn business as far as that's concerned. And so they had tried in 2001 to get me to tell them what was none of their business at all. And so in regards of my original Blue ID card, this has been going on since 2001. And so those people who are not family to me didn't get to know in person, face to face in person, in any capacity where I would ever consider them as a friend. Ever. At all. Whatsoever. Somehow in 2009, they thought that we were family. They thought we were friends. I don't know how they thought that. I don't know why they thought that. At all. Whatsoever. And so I made attempts to clarify that in 2009. And so when everything went the way it did regarding my scuba diving, that was none of their business. Literally. So I had been invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. 1996. I'm a smidgen independent. So there's no need for them to be involved with anything. They have no legal authority. They have no legal right. If they lied, as far as anything is concerned, well then they have to be held accountable because that's what they're responsible for. It's their stupidity in regards of, fully. And so while in 2013, in reference to that Facebook message through my original Facebook account, the name calling, which is an irony, of that individual having the nerve. So Mary tried to act, well, she did, she put it in writing. She actually said she thought I was a slut. I had been involved with, yes, the swinger community as well as the BDSM community. I don't know what her background is as to her stereotype for her automatic assumption in that reference to the swinging and or BDSM community, though through my updates regarding my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, through my website, www.susanneeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com, because I had to constantly defend myself, because I constantly dealt with a bunch of arguments, ignorance, temper tantrums, there wasn't any point in time that I was ever interested in being in that capacity with anybody, because that wasn't of any interest to me. I don't find anybody who purposefully stirs up needless drama to ever be attractive. There is nothing, and I could say, you could be physically attractive, or you could physically look pretty, or you could physically look, you know, whatever. But sexually, I will not find you attractive if I have to deal with certain things. And if I have to, as I did from 2009 through 2012, because of how much I had to defend myself, there wasn't anybody I found sexually attractive. Physically attractive, yes. Intellectually or mentally attractive, yes. Sexually attractive, no. There wasn't really that. Because when I have to constantly be on the defense, I don't care where. If I have to constantly be on the defense and I can't relax, there is nothing that I would ever consider as sexually attractive. So I'm a leather dominant female, biologically. That's who I am. I don't find brats to be attractive. I won't. I don't find having to constantly take care of stuff to be anything that is attractive. So when I constantly have to take care of every little thing in comparison to actually being capable to relax, I don't find that attractive. And at the time frame of 2009 through 2012, I was taking care of what was going on with my daughter. I was doing the best I could for my son. for a little bit of time, I would attend events so that way from, Sunday through Friday, I was constantly in comparison. And anytime I had some form of an actual relationship, there was a bunch of needless drama that got stirred up, and I didn't get to actually have any relaxation. Because instead of my choice, I had a bunch of other people who, whatever in that capacity, in comparison. That is not attractive to me. That is not anything worthwhile to me. At all. That is just an annoyance. That is immaturity. And so my ex-in-laws, as far as their children that were teenagers back in 2009, those teenagers that I warned the lifestyle about as far as millennials. So remember, Sandra was named after the MK Ultra version of the demonically possessed aunt of theirs, and Mary did so knowingly. Then said, would have you actually named, acknowledging, though not realizing, acknowledging that she named only because she saw the movie, as far as that was concerned. And then Mary named the middle name, as far as Ariel Nicole. As far as my other ex-sister-in-law, as far as Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, as far as that, her eldest daughter got caught bringing alcohol to middle school in a water bottle. The lack of parental anything regarding that one. She actually got fined because of her not picking her children up on time, as well as got fined for not dropping them off to school on time. I dealt with McCoy Elementary School regarding after a certain point in time, needlessly. So those types of immature aspects, so then you have the ones up in Oklahoma. Tony's second wife had 3 children, and those types of teenagers, in comparison, I didn't ever, those were very much informed. When they tried calling me Aunt Susan, it was, I will tolerate that, but I'm not your aunt. At all. I'm not your aunt. I don't know what you're accustomed to, but you are not at all. Whatsoever. You don't understand this other stuff regarding this. You are not. Not at all, my family. Not at all, whatsoever. So these types of needless problems, one of those, we're not friends, we're not family, why would you ever think you have a right to anything in my life? You must be stupid. You must be backwards stupid, as far as that's concerned, because if it's the wishful, oh, well, the head injury. Well, I was taken off of a military installation. If I actually had remained on the military installation back in 2000 and actually had what I needed taken care of in comparison to how that garbage went, well, I probably wouldn't have had so many needless drama problems, as far as that's concerned. I probably wouldn't have, hypothetically. However, instead, even to this day, in the 4th of July, 2022, that hasn't been, I went back to Fort Sam Houston in 2019 and 2020. In comparison to actually getting anything done, okay, fine, I got certain things clarified as far as when I was in medical hold unit, but it doesn't change the fact that's another situation where no, certain times there shouldn't be statutes of limitation, because if it continues onward, then you don't have that allowance. You do not have that leeway. If you have proof that it's still what have you, you are still culpable. Period, and end of story. So these needless problems regarding quite a few factors as to the length of time, this is the year 2022, that was in 2000, still has not actually been fixed or repaired. There has not been any justice in that regard. Why would I wonder why, if anyone would care? Because of what the fuck care actually is. Just for clarifications. So instead of actually having any point in time where I've ever been capable to actually relax to what I consider relaxation, you know, where other people do not make choices where they are not invited to because I did not invite them to. That's the big deal. I personally did not invite other people to make choices for me. I'm a smidgen independent. I don't care what other people thought they had a right to. They don't. At all. Whatsoever. No matter what. And so all of this time in regards of 2009 through 2012, not one point in time was I ever truthfully in this capacity of, I had one or two relationships where it was okay, whatever, and then all of this needless drama instead. And so in regards of if it has to do with their failure to accept the fact that the Chief Warrant Officer tree was accurate, accept the facts, it truthfully is beyond ridiculous as to my ex-in-laws' wishful crap. Okay, so what? I didn't graduate basic training. My background, my work is none of your motherfucking business. That's what the fuck the reality is. Wasn't invited, didn't ask, not interested as far as those types. Stir up needless drama in regards to my biological family, as far as those social media aspects, because of those types thinking that just because you have, no, because there's etiquette to that. There's respect that is required. You contact somebody and lying by saying you're contacting on my behalf, you're lying because I didn't give you permission to contact on my behalf. So in that hypothetical. So then in reference to my scuba diving in the year 2009, I had everything arranged. I didn't want or need or prefer or desire my ex-in-laws whatsoever involved with my scuba diving work. There was nothing about my ex-in-laws that needed to be a part of that ever. Whatsoever. That was fully my choice, not theirs. They were not ever going to be invited to that. And I would guesstimate they knew it. So if I sound as though I may be coming across as a dick, well, I wouldn't know. And yet, since my ex-sisters-in-laws have been as they have been, maybe there are some who could say how well they know what a dick is. In comparison. So in that particular, I mean, I know what strap-ons are, I do know that, but that's, I've already clarified. And besides, you have to actually earn that in comparison, and stirring up needless drama, not an interest. Automatically turned off as far as those particular types. So then, after how my son and I wound up in Washington State after that garbage at Stony LaRue Cowboy Dance Hall concert in March of 2013, instead of what actually was needed, there's not one point in time where anything that I've actually needed has actually been. I've worked for it. I have made attempts in every capacity. I've actually accomplished stuff. There is not one aspect where that has ever been actually correctly appreciated or recognized whatsoever by anybody else. Nobody has even asked me in person, face-to-face in person, as to what that would be. Nobody has asked me in writing in any capacity. Same thing with phone calls. That has not occurred. So because of 2009 and how that went, and then in 2010, well, if in 2009, instead of my daughter having the district therapy and all of that, and the situations as to the hospitalization, I would have actually had the announcement in what was my home. But because of this needless trash that decided to think that they had a right to anything, I actually had everything planned out as far as my work regarding my scuba diving. Instead of all this needless trash that decided that they thought they knew better. And if other people spoke on my behalf without my permission, well then those people spoke on their behalf and not mine. Because nobody was given the right to speak on my behalf. That's not a freedom of speech, by the way, just so it's known. Legal aspects, especially for those who are into bureaucracy. You'd think you'd know better as far as those legalities. So then, in reference to how Washington State wound up being, and those 3 females, as far as the Fort Worth Zoo, who were so irresponsible that they had less children between the 3 of them individually than I had the year before. And I didn't lose one of the 5 children, but they lost my daughter in regards of, because of their ignorance, as well as their lack of capabilities. And obviously their failures in every way, because then there's a situation regarding Hatcher, as far as the teacher and those ignorances. And so that bigotry that was rampant throughout McCoy Elementary School in Carrollton, Texas, of Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District, as well as in Farmers Branch, because I have been there. Bigotry after bigotry after bigotry regarding Carrollton's Farmers Branch Independent School District. I did not meet one person in regards of several factors that did not have some sort of thought that they had the right to certain things in my life in comparison. So that's just the facts in comparison to just having etiquette and respect. But there's those invasion of privacy problems as far as that's concerned. So wound up in Washington State, and those privacy laws, they're strict. I learned how to complete my Medal of Honor art project stuff in the beginning portion in New York City. So anybody who has common sense can look up those privacy laws. And then the last portion for one aspect, not the totality, for one aspect, was in the state of New Jersey. So 2 heavily privacy law protected states. And then the third part, I began my Medal of Honor art project officially in the state of Washington. So those aspects as to the modern day book regarding my book section through my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. I reiterate, there should be prosecution against people who knowingly make a false law enforcement report, in my opinion. Fully. Because especially if you have officially had clarifications, such as the hypotheticals to my ex-in-laws. They had everything clarified by a chief warrant officer tree. Any false report at all, they had the proof regarding that JCPenney pictures. They know for a fact who they showed those digital pictures to a degree. That is, if they put it on social media though, then that's a different factor as far as that's concerned. Some people, rightfully so, take stolen valor and ending stolen valor seriously. So I've had to update my tattoos in my palms because they faded a bit, similar to that as far as that's concerned, in comparison. Though I have posted in my journal blog, the Ornery PSA, my modeling pictures, some of them, in a time frame format as to a different version of verification because of those needless types, as to that immaturity. Because that is not care, that is not concern, as to all of those needless problems that occurred whatsoever. So then, in reference to how some children, such as my biological little sister, wanting to be an only child, and those needless problems regarding that crap. Because my son got in trouble for that when he confessed that. And by the time he confessed that was in 2013. And I had already been to the San Antonio Family Court. And so he got lectured on that. There was nothing I could do at that point. Already having had all the other factors, as far as all the other situations, and then Washington State after Arizona, and the attempts, attempt after attempt after attempt. So, when you stir up needless drama regarding those types, you do not prove to have humanity at all. You're just a heathen. That's all you are, is heathenic. You're not anything special. You're nothing new. You're just a heathen. That's it, in comparison. So then goes to that Rennie type, as far as those Renaissance fair garbage crap, in comparison to actual human decency. Because why would anybody who would go to a Renaissance fair multiple times ever be capable to have the mental acuity to distinguish the difference between a Rennie fair location and the rest of society? I wouldn't know because I only went to one, and I've been capable to distinguish this whole time. I also didn't ever see a need. So sure, I like my outfits the way I create my outfits. It's my right to create my own outfits. So then, in reference to Washington State, all those situations in comparison to human decency, well, why would I ever, at any point in time, at Club Sapphire, ever have the sensation to actually relax? Where would there ever have been an evening? Even, realistically, what evening, what event between 2009 to 2012, as well as 2013 in regards of Vancouver or Portland, Oregon, 2013 into 2014, just in those years, where did I ever get the chance to just relax and, actually enjoy, in comparison, At what actual aspect where I didn't have to defend myself, where I didn't see something that needed to be taken care of, where would that be in reference to the lifestyle? Because I cannot think of one time where I didn't ever notice certain things. Even in regards of the year of 2019, I still had to do something in comparison to just relaxing. Because, I had been volunteering there before in comparison to other people doing their job because of such laziness and assumptions. So if other people thought that whatever they thought, I don't know what they assumed. But there's not a point in time where I've actually been capable to attend an event, whether I was in a relationship or not. There is not one where I could just relax and actually enjoy the entire event. Every event I have ever attended, I have done something to assist taking care of something else. In comparison to what everybody else got to go do. Everybody else got to enjoy themselves. Everybody else got to whatever it is they got to do. In comparison, there just hasn't ever been that luxury. It would be great to actually be capable to. Instead, so from 2015 into 2018, well, sure, I didn't mind assisting to arrange things so that way the club got cleaned up, cleaned the shower, get ready at the club because of the length of a drive. So, I could just go and get ready in comparison. But those situations, which are supposed to have privacy, especially in Washington State. Go look at my journal blog, The Ornery PSA. On my website, www.susanmeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydoribell.com. In the state of Washington, it is mandatory for those privacy laws. Fully. Every time you have to legally get the actual signature in person, face-to-face in person. That's a Hollywood thing. That's a New York City thing. That's a New Jersey thing. Each and every day or each and every event, you have to have a signature. It is a mandatory. I've already clarified, I haven't signed in any capacity. And I'm going to guesstimate, such as Club Sapphire, they didn't either, each and every day of each event. But in comparison, I'm just me. What does that actually matter in regards of any of my work? What would that actually prove in regards of that journal blog for the 3rd of July, 2022? Because if anybody ever thought as to what in regards of at events, if you wonder why I didn't ever actually, get involved with it, well, because I was constantly babysitting. I was constantly cleaning up messes that were on the floor. I was constantly running security checks because of noticing certain things and others being in the various aspects of. I was constantly making sure the Keurig was taken care of, or this was taken care of, or that was taken care of, because why would anybody else actually do their job as far as other volunteers? Why would others actually follow the rules? Because anybody who got called out that went and complained regarding 2015 through 2018 to the front area, well, they complained because they got in trouble for doing something wrong. So if they were a male, most likely they got caught in the back, unattached, and then wanted to throw a temper tantrum. So when the security wasn't there, I went and took care of it. I made sure to let people know what I took care of as best as I could. So what would there be in regards of any aspect for my relaxation at any point in time? And then there's the fact it's called Club Sapphire, and I've said this in prior official YouTube videos of mine, and I know I wrote about this in prior journal blogs of mine, the Ornery PSA, through my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydoribelle.com. Well, my son and my daughter's birthstones are the month of September in that reference, which September, it's a sapphire. That's the most common birthstone. And then obviously 9/11, well, 9 is the 9th month, September. And so I barely remember my own birthday because, well, the first year awake from my coma after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, I was in the process of labor and delivery for however many days before my birthday, before I delivered my son. So, you know, my biological mother, biological little sister, and biological father as to any titty baby temper tantrums. Well, excuse me, I don't even remember my own birthday, especially at that time, the first year. Common sense. Then the second year, when it was technically my birthday, well, it was my son's birthday party that I was taking care of, and I was pregnant with my daughter. By the way, both years I still had that subarachnoid hemorrhage of the frontal lobe of my brain, but instead of anybody doing anything that would be common sense or human decency, there's not one point in time where anybody's actually celebrated my birthday with me there at all whatsoever. And then the irony, in regards to 2021, I went to go do something for myself, you know, but I had to deal with all of these needless drama problems in regards of getting out of a state that I didn't need to be in, that had wasted a bunch of time to the work that I was working on, and literally 6 to 7 months to get that transfer. And then, lo and behold, 6 to 7 months later, I finally got to the location I would have gone to, literally within the first 30 to 40 days. But instead of getting to the Liberty Science Center area at evening hours, no later than May of 2021, those people, as far as that arrangement of needless problems in whatever capacity of, instead just wasted all that time because of all the needless arguing back and forth with the management company. Not any business of theirs, by the way. Not any rights of theirs, by the way. In any way, in any shape, or any form. I've already clarified that. And so, instead of what I actually needed for myself, what is humanity? What is human decency? Because I don't know what that is when it comes to other people. Anybody who would actually have common sense would have known to just actually contact me, you know, using an email instead of hypothetical illegal surveillance, because in the state of Texas, the requirement is the individual within. You are not allowed to be outside of a location and know of surveillance illegally, because that doesn't count as any legal aspect. There's no legal right Because remember, my lease agreement was only in my name. So no legal right to any apartment complex or any apartment complex company to ever have any illegal surveillance, because that would be stalking, that would be harassment legally. So in that hypothetical, what was there ever to relax? You even got 2020. What was it regarding my birthday in comparison to what I actually preferred? Because realistically, instead of any common sense, there just hasn't been any of that regarding anybody else. So common sense, for those who don't know, if you want to do something for my birthday, you should ask me, instead of assuming at all. If you are going to, for example, I had told how I wound up in Washington State. I had said I did not want the stereotype of what the birthday is in Club Sapphire because of the reality. That's the facts. So instead of anything, not 1 year. Nothing new for the prior 22 years, as far as my birthday is concerned. I don't give a fuck about my biological mother having a temper tantrum when she knows the facts as to my coma. Same thing with my biological little sister. I don't give a fuck about her crappy, whiny, little spoiled brat temper tantrums. As far as my biological father is concerned, he went through RN school, so there is that. So if there's any selfish garbage and crap as far as that's concerned, well, just think, during August, in regards of 2003, what bullshit did I deal with during that point in time? How hypocritical would my twat hoe biological little sister be if she actually thought at all as to any common sense? But that would require not being selfish at all. That would require that. And since instead she was in high school and a stereotypical teenager, well, there's those factors. But again, I was emancipated in 1996, and I was emancipated a second time in the year 2000. So if it wasn't subconsciously known, well then they would have done something to actually celebrate my birthday at the correct time, instead of in April or May of 1998. Instead. So, just pointing that out there. Now, in reference to other people that I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, well, I don't like surprise aspects. I have a preference of scheduling time. So if you don't schedule through me regarding my time, then there's that problem. As far as that's concerned. So it's not rocket science at all. It actually shows the lack of human decency as far as my biological mother, biological father, and especially biological little sister, as far as that needless garbage. So, first 3 years, first 8.5 years. So let me go over what was for the first 8.5 years as to when I woke up from my coma after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. In 2000, I was in medical hold unit and I was only awake from my coma for however long. And I had the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. And I was learning how to deal with the pain as far as headaches and migraines. And I was dealing with the different diagnosis as to the memory deficits and cognitive disorders, and having found out that I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. In 2001, I was in labor for however many days, still had that subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain before, a few days later giving birth to my son. And the same thing, but except in 2002, I dealt with that McDonald's birthday party situation, as far as in Fort Worth, my ex-in-laws. And then later, gave birth to my daughter. In 2003, I dealt with my biological little sister being a twat trifling hoe at McHenry High School in San Antonio off of Eckert Road, as far as that was concerned. In 2004, it was during the first separation, but I was making sure that my son and my daughter were as safe as possible while taking care of them, going to preschool. Still had that subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. And then 2005, well, then there was Hurricane Katrina-ish around the time, so that was something different. However, I was taking care of my son and my daughter. It was that point, 2006, it was the second and final separation, and dealing with all that sort of stuff. Still had that subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain while taking care of my son and my daughter, doing the best I could keep them safe. 2007, well, then there's all of that in the same aspects of, though my son and my daughter, their biological father was overseas as far as that was concerned after he lied about IRR, the garage situation regarding that particular factor. And then 2008, well, my ex-father-in-law died, as far as earlier in the month, after my son and my daughter's biological father died. And after the situation as far as the Bronze Star, among a few other things such as CID and all those up the chain of command, and the General Gilman's office factor, after all of that, well, there was that. Then there was 2009, and when I got back from the Vandenberg and handling that, instead of anything, well, I had a few minutes of quiet in what was my home for a very short amount of time. Though the subarachnoid hemorrhage from the frontal lobe of my brain was finally out of MRIs and CAT scans. So I guess there's a silver lining. But then there's 2010 and the stuff regarding my daughter and my son and doing the best I could. There's and the moves and all that stuff, and what was my home, as far as that was concerned. 2011 regarding what was my, as far as, so 2011, well, I guess there's Irving 2011, sure. There's the factors of a dinner using the only saving grace of my scuba dive colors as to the BDSM colors, as well as the same fucking colors. But with my son there, as far as that as far as that problem, in comparison to ever actually asking me what I'd actually prefer instead. And then, Irving as far as 2011. So, I guess maybe that's a different type of silver lining, and having to deal with all of that stuff. And then 2012, well, then there was what was going on with my daughter, doing the best that I could for my son, the bitching from my biological mother, biological father, biological little sister, the ex-in-laws, as well as the other garbage associated, and then the shit in the supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle, as far as all that crap as well. And then 2013, well, I was in Washington State. And then 2014, in regards to the time frame of my birthday, well, then had to move because of the shit in regards of Vancouver. And so then there was that. 2015, regarding my birthday, well, got to go to Olive Garden. Woohoo. 2016, well, there was the work that I was doing as best as I could because of all this stuff that was going on. 2017, well, I arranged so that way I could see the solar eclipse, but instead of actually getting to enjoy the solar eclipse, because of where I specifically arranged and specifically said that it should only be a certain way, and instead of what it was supposed to actually be, in regards of at that time, well, there's that. 2018, well then, after getting back from my Medal of Honor art project trip, my son decided to inform me that he wanted to go to the Army and all that, so all right, fine. So then there was that. Literally told me that on my birthday, by the way. It was literally on my birthday. 2019, well, I was back in the state of Texas and running around and taking care of, 2019, I was driving around. I had already been back to the state of Texas. Then I went out to Washington, D.C. area, Virginia area. Then I went down to a ramp in Georgia. Then I went back up to Washington State, went down to the West Coast area as far as Santa Monica Pier, and then back to the state of Texas, though in regards of my actual birthday, the first time I ever got a phone call from my son at all, and then, you know, the following year I got one from my daughter for my birthday. Okay, cool, that's great. Didn't actually get to do anything I actually wanted, preferred, needed, or anything at all, because that would actually be the best. But instead, I got to do all that because, you know, experiences matter. And then 2021, well, I was dealing with a bunch of shit after I finally got the transfer in comparison to several months earlier. That would have actually been where I could actually do what I'd actually preferred in the area for my birthday. But since what it took to actually get the, see, this is why you don't hesitate, and this is why you actually ask me. Instead of ever assuming that you have an idea of what my plans are. So in comparison to where I wrote my notations for my calendar schedule, well then there's that. So I already wrote down my whole schedule as far as, I didn't put it in writing as in with a pen, but I did put it in writing where I needed to. That goes to energetic factor as to prophecy stuff. So that's a whole other factor. So 2022. Well, well, I can't even really think of what would actually be enjoyable, because that would require people that I actually would want to be around, that would actually be celebratory in comparison, and you know, in genuinity. So that's a whole other ball of wax. So instead, well, it'll be what it'll be. So, you know, I don't like surprise parties. I'm not a fan of them. So it's always best to actually ask. So I've done some clarifications and verifications regarding between 2019 through this year and 2022. And I've been through a few situations, and not just in regards of birthdays, though in regards of overall. I don't know what an actual good surprise is, because that requires me to have one as an actual experience to do so. But since I haven't ever had a good surprise. I have all sorts of other experiences. That just doesn't happen to be one of them. So, but that's because I've constantly been working. And so, or volunteering, or whatever capacity of. So while some people might think that, well, just volunteering is just volunteering, well, if you don't take it seriously, yeah, it's just volunteering. But if you take your work when you're volunteering seriously, well, then you take your work when you're volunteering seriously. So, in regards of Sapphire, when I was volunteering, I had an actual physical badge on for that knowledge. So I put that badge on myself for that knowledge that I was volunteering. And so in that reference, it's one of those, well, that if you had some other viewpoint in comparison, I wouldn't know at all. So when there is not that discussion to ever ask me, and if there's a bunch of whispers among other people in comparison to asking me, well, then there's that. But nobody had. So, I mean, you know, I did what I did as far as assisting where I could, went and got ice with, you know, went to the gas station to pick up ice and bring it back. And, you know, this is before the club, although both times, realistically, there have been plenty of events when that occurred. And so, you know, other stuff. And then because the events got as crowded, which that's a good thing for business, obviously, except then, you know, well, why would I ever relax in regards to, I mean, you know, like, so for example, there were discussions before the club opened a few times where Ray, who had told me, so there's a few things about Ray. So Ray was surprised as to how seriously I took things and how responsible in a few ways. There was a problem with Ruby one evening in the front lobby, and I looked at her, and I can't remember what she said, and I looked at her and I said, you know what? You're correct, Ruby. I don't need to volunteer. I can just walk away. Don't worry. I'll go do that. And Ray, at that time, jumped up and he was like, whoa, no. I cannot afford to have you leave. No. And I said, no. I'm not into drama. I will not force myself upon anybody. So I'll just leave. I won't deal with that. I have etiquette, I have respect. I won't be a part of that. And Ruby just, those who know Ruby, she just smiled and it's fine, that's fine. Ray was like, no. I can't run this club without you. I can't do this. There is so much stuff that you take care of. I cannot have you leave. So we went into the side room and, okay, what? And he's like, you do a lot more than anybody else knows you do. It's always been that way. And Ray was like, I know what's just a small amount of what you do. And I was like, okay. He's like, this club would fall apart without you in the club. That's very kind of you, Ray. The club would, there are other people that would take care, and he was, no. Ruby has no idea how to actually run a club. She would rather spend and waste money in comparison. You actually care about the different people. You are misunderstood, definitely, but you actually care. That is one of the most rare things in regards of the lifestyle. Oh, thanks. You know, this was a discussion, and this was not just one time, this was a few times, and it was, oh, thank you. I know a few things. And I because of the zapping, I couldn't verbalize, especially on top of that, I couldn't allow myself to go into the references of those at that time, as I've updated more recently, as to those factors regarding obviously the 1960s and 1970s are before the 1980s and 1990s. And so, you know, those who know about the sexual aspects as to the 1960s and 1970s. And so the 1980s, I lost a lot of people I knew. And they were friends. They were like second family to me. And, or more of a family in some ways than other aspects. And so, instead, I had to appreciate that because it just was as it was. And so, he very much, he's the only, I don't know if other people had noticed, but he had very much brought up that there were a lot of problems that were averted because of the way I took care of things. And it was just, oh, well, thank you. Just, I noticed things, where I was born and raised, that's, again, I had done running, as far as those who understand that in security. And so, that's another reason why I also can't just relax, because I'm a runner. I'm not and not that I run away from problems, that's actually, it is a bad term for that. It's more along the lines of I'm a runner. So those who understand larger areas and security checks, I'm a runner. And so that translates, for those who don't know, it's like a consultant who has the capacity to maneuver through areas, make suggestions at times if there is time to make suggestions. If there is not time to make suggestions, then there is just handling situations as best as possible to mitigate the most amount of damages while preserving the sanctity and security as best as possible in comparison. And so I've done that since I was a child, before I actually went into elementary school, regarding the World Trade Center and the World Trade Center Plaza. It's not a location that you can be a runner and not have a certain site that automatically is, because of being capable to, though also strengthens. And so that's more after, here's the irony, that's after having already been out to the Atlantic, as far as the Atlantic area, the oceanic waters. So being a runner from, which is just a shortened term, it's kind of like St. John Vianney High School regarding track and field. I was a floater. So that really translates to ringer, as far as, you know, give a little boost here, assist here, and so on and so forth. So, reference to the World Trade Center, the World Trade Center Plaza, that metaphor is that translation. And so World Trade Center and World Trade Center Plaza, you have to be swift, and you have to be light on your feet, though heavy if you have to. Lack of better wording. You have to be capable to see in ways that nobody really notices. That's a different situation altogether depending on. And I made attempts to explain a little bit, but I couldn't really put it in words because I had never had anybody notice that before regarding me. Other than my babysitter's husband, Joe Jose. As to the running, but that's also what that was kind of my thing. And so, but Ray had noticed how I had, and so for those who understand the wristbands to get into the club, well, I had noticed people inside and brought it to his attention. And he had not realized how I could see that, which is irony because he said his brother was in the Delta Force or something, and it's like, oh, well, thanks for a second. He might understand what a runner is. Although it would depend on, there is that. I can make that joke. I can. It's probably called something different regarding that, though at the same time, there might be that understanding. Different types of runners, many different types of runners. And I'm not talking track and field. So, nonetheless, Ray had noticed that. And I'd essentially give him a report at the end of each. By the time when I would get to a certain point, either I'd check in, and it was almost like, for those who would know, it was not the same as Joe Jose to World Trade Center stuff, but kind of. So if you were to take every time that I had checked in and been like, okay, I did this, that's the equivalent of a very small, condensed version of World Trade Center and World Trade Center Plaza. Obviously, because Club Sapphire is only a one-story building, and it's not even a whole building, it's part of a building. So, usually, well, then there's security walks, that's different. But that's something different completely. So that has to do more with my work as far as my Medal of Honor art project. So I've clarified and verified a few things, especially in regards to the modern day book through my website in the book section, www.susanmealing.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And then the ornery PSA, and so my journal blog. And so there's a few factors, and because of seeing in different ways, then there's that. And so being a runner, well, even after waking up from my coma, 22 years later, it's not something I forgot, obviously. I didn't ever forget that. And so, I don't know who of the World Trade Center and World Trade Center Plaza that worked with Joe Jose and whatever his company's name, or company that he worked for. I wasn't privy to that part. I just knew he was the director of security. So I just do, it's just in a different capacity. So in those in comparison to reporting or being like, okay, I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or this situation occurred, just so you know, and so on and so forth. So that way it's a protective measure. Although in the general public, as far as civilians, they usually don't realize that that's what it is. Usually, from what I've learned, I know that the World Trade Center Plaza is a civilian-ish area, but security guys with certain types of backgrounds have that understanding in the comparison, and so it's not something I'm not accustomed to. I'm more detail oriented than some may have realized, even as it is. So if instead of the specifics of having picked up stuff or doing that, it's more along the lines of awareness. And so civilians outside of a situation like that, such as the World Trade Center or the World Trade Center Plaza, because there's two different areas, just for that clarification, because there is the World Trade Center and the World Trade Center Plaza. It was around the World Trade Center. That's why it was called the World Trade Center. And so the plaza was around World Trade Center and had many towers, not just one or two. So there's that. So then there's that's something that I made attempts to explain beforehand, and people didn't really understand my words. In the civilian sector, ironically telling me to utilize words, and I had the words I had, and so did the best I could. But yeah, Ray had to calm me down on that one, because I was ready to walk, as I really did. After 2018, there was a situation regarding how I wound up in Washington State, and instead of, clean blankets, there were dog blankets. And so, that just enraged me. And already prior in that year, I had been informed, Ruby doesn't like how you are. As well as far as how my son and I wound up in Washington State, and was, how would you know? You're not supposed to be involved with anything regarding that at all. That was a huge red flag when that occurred. And so, I made the best attempts that I could to remain calm by that point. And so there was a point where Ruby had said that she thought Ray and Deb needed to take a break in comparison. It's a problem regarding that when you have the lack of common sense around. And so usually there were more situations that stirred up during certain times. And so, after taking care of what I needed to, and saw my son off to the Army, as he said he was going to Fort Benning, Georgia, which, then there's that stupid twat hoe, ex-sister-in-law. And so, not a friend of mine in any capacity.
Not in reality. Didn't ever get to know her personally. That wasn't something that really ever occurred. And so, I also did not invite. That's the other thing. I know certain Southerners and Midwesterners think that they have, that Southern viewpoint. People in the North, we don't like that. We view that as nosy. We view that as intrusive. We view that as disrespectful. We view that as, well, you might find us interesting. We don't care. We don't care if you find us interesting. That's kind of the problem that a lot of individuals in New Jersey and New York City and Pennsylvania had. These people that would come from certain southern regions and they didn't know how to be respectful, yet they would claim that they had respect, which was weird because they got really nosy in comparison. And so they thought, because it was explained to me that they thought that because in the South they do certain things, they didn't seem to understand that they were in the North. And so they thought that their Southern ways were what we prefer in the North, and they failed to understand that we don't. So while they thought that they were being friendly, they didn't understand that they were offensive in every way. So, like, for example, when they show up without permission, they'd try to claim that, oh, well, we're just in the neighborhood. No, you're not. No. In the neighborhood translates to you living in the actual neighborhood. And then, you're down the street and okay, you thought of something, stop by, and it's a few minutes and everybody goes on. If you drive out of the way, you are technically in the neighborhood, and yet you're not. Because you want to try to claim that, oh, well, just so happened to be. No, that's not how that works. No, just be honest on that. My biological father had that issue with his sister, Linda. She had went to somewhere in the South, and then instead of a few things, she then just in the neighborhood. No, you're not just in the neighborhood. And so a lot of, I don't know if this is a normal thing for Southerners and Midwesterners in regards of their own neighborhood, but they just kind of show up, and then, like, this happened, this was something I warned people in Crystal Lake South. So there was the JV squad decided when the varsity squad was doing the toilet paper thing, they didn't take my warnings seriously. I dealt with a bunch of needless problems because they decided to toilet paper the tree in the front yard. And because of them being ignorant and not knowing any better as to what my biological father was like, I dealt with a few things because of that. And I had to clean up a bunch of stuff because of their ignorance. The next day, as far as the first day of school, afterwards, I busted open the door and all of the cheerleaders jumped about 2.5 feet off the ground. They were like, oh, what, Susan? And it was, which one of you motherfuckers did this shit? Because we're gonna have it out right about now. You fucking think that this is a funny motherfucking game. I'm playing with you. And so the little JV squad cheerleaders were like, oh, come on, it's no big deal. You little motherfucking bitches, I fucking don't give a fuck who you fucking think you are. I will fuck you up in different motherfucking ways.
You don't fucking know who the fuck you fucking with, bitch. Stupid fucking slut twat hoes. Fuck, I got a joke for you. And all these little fucking JV cheerleaders were like, what type of joke? What's grosser than gross, bitches? And they were, no, we don't know. Slut from a cheerleading squad does a split and the motherfucking boyfriend's ring falls out. You know what's grosser than that, bitches? And they were like, we don't, no. You know what's grosser than that? What? The bitch fucking does this fucking split and then 2 motherfucking rings come out. Because it's his and his friends from football team. That's the, no, bitches, you fucking little JV squad twats. You know what's grosser than that? Is when the bitch does a fucking split and the motherfucking whole team's fucking rings fall out. Bitches. And the fucking JV squad was like, hey, be cool. No, because you know what? There's gonna be a motherfucking day, twat hoes, that's gonna come out. It's just gonna be in a different motherfucking way, and you don't know how that is. But you know what? You go play your little fucking games. Go fucking do that. And let's see how many motherfucking rings pop out, bitches. Because that'll be motherfucking gross. So there's the merger from the 6th of June, 2022. So I didn't really give the JV cheerleader squad any warning as much. So, you know. And so I'm a smidgen independent as far as, and so if those, sluts, in my opinion, because of what they had already been known for and officially proven in comparison, there's those factors and those verifications. You know, I know that there's ethical sluts, I know that. There's where you have permission and you actually have informed officially consent. So both people have informed official consent and they discuss it and arrange it between themselves in comparison to what would not be considered as consensual. Because non-consent is non-consent. And if you have non-consent, well, that's a 4-letter word. And that's just the reality. And so there's no escaping that at all, especially if arranged through technology. And so there are those particular factors. And so I wasn't ever friends with the JV squad. I didn't ever want to be friends with them either. I was kind to them, though. They didn't seem to understand how kind I had actually been. And so I gave warnings where I could. There was a cafeteria table situation, for one example, but you know, when you aren't mature in high school by that time, what are you ever gonna amount to? You know, I mean, by the time, realistically, especially Asher Holmes, to Marlboro Middle School, we had some situations that we dealt with, yes, but, you know, we had certain situations we dealt with. And while, yes, there was some, you know, compared to the drama needlessly in Crystal Lake South, I thought I was back in elementary school compared to New Jersey. Like, I literally thought I was in 1st grade at the highest level in regards of how those people were behaving. So that was, and you know, other people would be capable to take in consideration, but they were also really into pop culture and those particular factors. And so those types of those needless types, they weren't ever an interest to me. So if any of this stuff occurred regarding my son and my daughter and I, and they were afraid that I would go to Illinois for that high school reunion, maybe they had a guilty conscience as to anything, though in that hypothetical as to maybe not, I just wasn't interested in them as much as they may have thought. Yeah. So
in that similarity of events, there wasn't ever a point in time in Crystal Lake High School that was ever calm to enjoy. So they may have had whatever memories they had. I don't find comfort in constantly having to defend myself. Anybody that would be ignorant to think that would be a way to welcome someone is exactly that, ignorant. So those types that, I know how people are from New Jersey, throughout Crystal Lake South High School, there was nothing of any comfort regarding that. There were a few people here and there, but they could not make up for the amount of other garbage that came from a bunch of, especially the biological females. They were just so immature. They thought so much more highly of themselves in comparison. And so, I'm sure they asked my biological little sister about me in comparison, and why would you be ignorant? That would be stupid to ask my biological little sister about me. Who's 4 years younger. Morons. But then there is that where those types, just the people in the neighborhood, I didn't have this concern. People didn't just show up to the house when I was there. So if they showed up when I wasn't there, well, then they weren't there to see me. And that's just the truth. So if my biological mother and or biological father invited other people over, well, they didn't inform me. And in addition to that, well, why wouldn't you inform me if you're supposedly a friend of mine? So there's that, as far as those types of needless problems regarding that. In comparison, common sense. Just pointing that out there. And so there's the facts that there's only Melody Mendini that I had gotten along with briefly. But it wasn't something that just showing up without being invited. So I didn't ever go over her mom's house without being invited, regarding her inviting me, referencing Melody inviting me over. If my biological mother and or my biological father and or my biological little sister invited her over instead, that's something that's a complete different problem to think about as far as that is. And so, didn't need any of those types of problems additionally to what I was already dealing with instead. Especially when it comes to the fact as to my biological mother. And then those ex-in-laws. So just as unwelcoming as Crystal Lake South had been, because of those types, there's nothing that is welcoming about, I know how people are from New Jersey, the way my ex-sisters-in-law's daughters were. Oh, we know how people are from New Jersey. Nothing welcoming about that. It's not how it is. In order to be actually welcoming, well, you don't do that. You actually have etiquette, you have actual respect, you understand that, you actually, if you want to get to know, you invite to the area instead. And if you understand that there are certain other things going on, you have the respect to give that space in comparison to, monitoring without permission, because there's those problems of those types. And then that's absolutely uncomfortable. There's no way that that can be undone, because if you don't give actual privacy to just relax, well, it's no different as far as that type. Invasion of privacy is a problem. That's why there are privacy laws. And so again, regarding my Medal of Honor art project, well, that's why you have to actually speak with me to actually know how to not be disrespectful and disgraceful. That's what you have to do if you have human decency. If you don't have human decency, then you don't do that. It's common sense. It's just that simple. So if accurate regarding a few locations as to those types, whether they're X's regarding, prior relationships, if they were even a relationship to begin with. Certain types that they pine away for whatever in comparison, and then they stir up needless drama in comparison to actually fixing or repairing anything, because they think that if they stir up needless drama, all of a sudden they'll want to be with them in comparison. And especially in regards to myself, well, if you don't know that I have sight and you stalk illegally without any permission, because that's what stalking illegally would be, and you wouldn't know about sight, well, then you'd have problems for yourself, because that would be your fault for ever thinking that that would ever be considered as anticipatory in comparison to creepy. Fully, because if you think that that's considered anticipatory, well, it wouldn't be in a correct way. It wouldn't be in a positive way, because being anticipatory in regards of my stuff requires certain minimum standards. And if you don't meet those minimum standards, it's not anticipatory in a respectful way at all. It would be ignorant to think so. So, there's those types, such as, I don't have many relationships to go off of. So you have regards of, so there's DFW, so you have Sean Leonard, and you have Patrick Kennedy and Matt West. And each one of them made the choices that they made, and I went and took care of what I needed to take care of. And since they decided, if you don't speak with me, if you don't make a genuine attempt to speak with me, then I'm not going to waste my time, especially with the amount of work that I was dealing with back then. It's just the reality of what was going on. So common sense, if you think you're going to have chivalry, that requires you to actually be chivalrous. And so you don't assume, you actually ask the one and only person to ask. That's how chivalry goes in comparison. So then in regards of Austin, though kind of DFW, you have Sean McCall. Well, he ran, and I just had my own stuff to take care of, especially at the time frames up. Because in order to actually have a relationship, it requires actual communication. And if you're going to throw temper tantrums, instead of being a biological adult and having in-person, face-to-face in-person discussions in reference to the four of those, then that's just the reality. That's not a waste, that is not just a waste of time. That's an amount of ignorance and lack of common sense that's ridiculous at that point. So then there's the other factor as to Joseph and Megan Estes, which first and foremost, I wasn't interested in a long term. Secondly, when it came to the mandatory requirement of having an actual discussion, and Joseph Estes wanted to cry in a bed in comparison to having an actual discussion, I was not willing to deal with that when I had enough that I was dealing with at that point in time, which was known as to what I was already dealing with. So those types of those people regarding no comfort at all, while knowing what I was actually dealing with. So instead of common sense, human decency, or even the slightest bit of humanity, there wasn't any of that when I returned back to Texas, as far as I could see. Because that requires truth in genuinity. And because it was known, I'm going to guesstimate in regards of my website so my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. Yes, I changed my profile in FetLife. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. Uh-huh. I can write multiple ways. You know, common sense. But when you don't have that, and you play ignorant games without any consent from me whatsoever, because I haven't ever consented to any game at any point in time because I wouldn't. I haven't had that luxury. But that goes to that Rennie type, and I'm not interested in Rennie types at all. Those Rennie types are not ever assistive because that requires to be a grown-up. And instead, that Rennie type wants to play games, and I'm not interested in games. I've had enough to deal with. There's not a game that has ever been comfortable for me, even when I was a child. I hated games as a child. So there is no Rennie type that will ever be of comfort. That is something that people have needed to understand. I haven't had that luxury, and I consider it a luxury because you have to have such an easy life that you don't actually have anything to genuinely think about in reality, that you can just go and escape into that in comparison to having actual stuff to take care of. And so for those types that must have, that luxury of not real stuff to ever do, those Rennie types aren't anything worthwhile to me. Because what I consider as luxury is not a game. I will not ever find games luxurious. I find them annoying, childish, a pain in the ass, ignorant, and nothing worthwhile to me at all. They are putrid, they are heathenic, they are worthless, they are just nothing of any value to me whatsoever. That's just how they've always been, no matter what anybody might wish. And there are plenty who have tried to convince me before the year of 2009. So no, that my opinion won't change, no matter what. And so in those particular references of those types that think that games are acceptable, well, you have to keep in mind, that's among the people that you. Do not involve me with that, because that's not welcoming. That's not anything other than just another piece of trash that isn't worth my time. I'm just not that type of person. You just need to accept that. So in comparison to those Rennie types that just are just, ugh. There just hasn't been actual comfort, because I've worked to actually be capable to afford my own comfort, because I know what I prefer instead, and I don't have the need for certain types. And so when certain types think whatever way that they do, I know what I actually need, and that's why I've worked as much as I have. So that way I can do, because you know, when you're a runner, as a child, other people are not going to be capable to do that correctly, especially if they've had to be corrected, especially if they've had to be put into check. So if they don't know, then they don't know, and they won't get it correct. That's just the facts. That's why I've worked as much as I have to be capable to do what I actually need, because of my actual preferences for what I know is best for me in comparison. It's what I've worked diligently for. So that way, at some point, I could actually relax and enjoy my life instead. Yeah, so, you know, that's not helpful. I mean, unless in regards of what President Ronald Reagan said as to what people would consider as help. Because, yeah, in comparison to what actually would be considered as assistive to me, well, that hasn't been. Constantly arguing and debating or whatever, or that's not comfortable to me at all. That hasn't ever been comfortable to me. So, you know, I've worked to actually do what I need, so that way I could actually do what I prefer in comparison. That's been a big aspect to what I've worked for. So that way I could make my own choices, you know, instead of other people thinking that they knew better. Those are problems. I'm a smidgen independent, and so when that sort of stuff is that way, that's just an annoyance. That's not anything beneficial to me at all. So, you know, so while some people might think that they know me better, who would that be? I haven't had anybody actually get to know me in person, face to face in person. In truth, that requires that. Otherwise, illegal surveillance in that hypothetical, or in regards of my official YouTube channel, well, that's just it. It's in that technological way. It's not in a human being way. That's what, you know, is the reality. So if you don't do things in a human being way, that's what you don't do in a human being way. If you only do a more current time frame of a Rennie type, then, well, you're just a Rennie type, and I don't have any need for that at all. Haven't assisted in any capacity in the correct way. So in that hypothetical of 2009 and those Rennie types finding out about my scuba diving, and instead of having human decency and common sense as to those needless Rennie types, that's always been a problem for those types since I've first learned of them, and I'm sure there are others who have learned that as well. And so that does not fix or repair anything, and that does not undo anything. And you started it in regards to whatever year you Rennie types had been. In comparison, I don't seek that out. I'm not that type. So you Rennie types, as far as that hypothetical, talk about unwanted. Realistically. So, there's also that factor. So I did work to actually do stuff for myself because I knew what was going on, and since so many people prior had failed, I went to go take care of it. And that would have been best if it would have actually been spoken with me. If anybody else were to be like, well, I can, you should really not go and do certain things without speaking with me first. Using your actual words, audibly, in person, face to face, in person, having actual etiquette and respect, because that's what that requires. And then having a discussion in comparison to a lecture, is exactly that. A discussion goes back and forth in person, face to face, in person, in comparison to this pretend aspect regarding my official YouTube video. Subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And so, since other people have not actually been assistive to me in the correct capacity, though have not done anything that would be considered as relaxing for me at all. That's an additional thing that I've worked towards to actually be capable to do. And so if that stuff that I was working on regarding my books and those factors in comparison for my profits, so that way I could actually have something that would be worthwhile for me to smile about. I do not appreciate individuals who stirred up needless drama. So if there were those who were like, we'll just go and hold her finances in comparison to doing anything that would actually be assistive. Because if we do that, we'll stir up needless drama, show how little we care, because that would require humanity. And so in comparison to paying attention to finding a silver lining and finding the silver lining and the modern day book in the correct ways and actually asking me, the ornery PSA through my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. So those types as to the updates from 2019 into 2020 into 2021, and now in 2022, I have already clarified and verified, obviously. So those types, as far as what they could have done, that would have actually been assistive at the correct time. What they should have done instead of stirring up needless drama. And what they would have done if they actually believed me from the get-go, well, woulda, shoulda, coulda, as far as those hypotheticals. And so people who have needed to learn that I know how people are from New Jersey, that's New York City. That's not New Jersey. Unless you piss somebody off to that point. And it does take a lot to piss off a true New Jerseyan to get to that point, and that's your fault, where you have to accept accountability for your stupidity, because that's your responsibility. Individuals who stir up needless drama, they're not even a dime, or what is it? They're not even a dozen for what the cost is to make a penny. They're not even 50 to a penny. That's nothing new. Especially with the population of the United States of America and the world. That's nothing new. So people who don't do that and actually make attempts for genuine comfort, because it's called, apparently maybe it's not understood because it became a profession, being hospitable, having hospitality, is considered as etiquette or respect, depending on certain situations in comparison. So maybe other words, those references. Thanks for tuning in. Today is the 4th of July and 2022. It actually is. So I can think of a few reasons for a great Independence Day. As far as that is concerned, I am quite excited for that. So I'm glad I got a piece of good news, which is just ideal in reference to today, the 4th of July in 2022. Go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. Subscribe to my official YouTube channel, like my official YouTube videos, and if you're going to leave a comment or what have you, make sure to have etiquette and respect. The 4th of July in 2022.